Today's lesson is Too Good to Be True, the tempting tricks of online shopping scams. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
Hello, I'm Kiki.
And today, Kiki and myself are going to continue talking about online shopping scams. And we certainly don't want any of our dear students to fall victim to online shopping scams. And that's why we're talking about this subject in today's lesson. We talked about it last time as well. And we mentioned the fact that you may actually try to order something online, say your favorite sneakers or something like that. The website looks legitimate. You don't think there's anything wrong, so you go ahead and order the shoes, and they just don't ever arrive. And then it hits you, you've been scammed.
That's right. You are scrolling through Facebook, and you look at this very eye-catching advertisement, and you think, wow, that shirt looks really pretty, and it's really cheap. But you've never heard of this brand, and you click into it, and you spend money, and you buy the clothes, and then you realize that you don't receive it. And usually, because this is so widespread, that these online scams happen so often now.
But fear not, we're going to help you protect yourself by learning how to identify these frauds. Let's continue with today's lesson. Let's listen to the first part, and we'll come right back.
Online shopping scams typically take one of two general forms. The first is the fake store, where you pay for an item that doesn't exist and will never be sent to you. The second is the fake item. In this second version, people are tricked into thinking they're buying a certain brand of product, but then receive a cheaper counterfeit version.
大家好，第一部分首先来看片语 trick somebody into 加动词 ing， 意思为哄骗某人做点点点。例如 In this story, the evil witch tricks the princess into drinking poisoned wine. 在这个故事中，那位邪恶的女巫哄骗公主喝下毒酒。或者 The scammer tricked the old lady into handing over her savings. 诈骗集团诱骗老太太交出她的积蓄。
In part one, let's find out how we can learn to recognize these fake online stores. Online shopping scams typically take one of two general forms. The first is the fake store, where you pay for an item that doesn't exist and will never be sent to you. So online shopping scams, it looks like two different things. Sometimes it is a fake store, it's not a real store, and then you pay for something, and actually they don't even have this item, so you're just paying for nothing. They're never going to send it to you because it doesn't exist. The store doesn't exist. The whole website only exists because they want to take your money.
Right, so the first thing you need to do is identify the fake store. And yes, indeed, the item that they're trying to sell you doesn't actually exist and will never be sent to you. And the second thing to watch out for is the fake item. So first of all, you're looking for the fake store, and now you're looking for the fake item. That pair of shoes that you really want to have, or a shirt or a necktie or whatever. Yes, you want to make sure that that item is fake or real. And in this second version of an online shopping scam, people are tricked into thinking they're buying a certain brand of product, but then receive a cheaper counterfeit version. I think I've heard of people actually falling victim to this. They thought they were buying a Versace bag, but they ended up getting something that was made in a sweatshop in Vietnam.
Right. And people are tricked into thinking. So this phrase, tricked into thinking, is to make someone believe something or to do something by being untruthful. So if you want something from someone, usually you'll try to say something to trick them into thinking that they're another thing. So for example, he tricked him into doing more homework by telling him that he's going to get a lot of candy.
That does sometimes work. If you try to trick someone into doing something, you offer them something and then they do it and they find out they've been tricked or they've been deceived. And yes, indeed, the website will trick you into thinking. They'll make you believe that you're buying a certain brand of product, but then instead you'll receive a cheaper counterfeit version. So if something's counterfeit, It's a copy of something, but it's not the real thing. We often use the word counterfeit when we talk about money. Sometimes people try to counterfeit money by copying the 1,000 NT dollar bill or a 100 US dollar bill. They try to produce fake bills, and that's why when you pay for something at a store, they sometimes scan the bill in a special machine they have with like this blue light or something, and that will tell if the bill is authentic or counterfeit.
So usually when something is counterfeited, it is something made to look like the real item, and usually this item is of value. So there are lots of counterfeit bags, counterfeit watches, and those are what might get sold on these fake websites. So you go onto this link, you buy this pair of Balenciaga shoes, and then what arrived just says Balenci.
Ooh, that would be counterfeit indeed. It's not the real thing, and you'll realize it will hit you that you've been scammed, you've been cheated, and you'll feel really embarrassed. You probably won't want to tell your parents or your friends. They will laugh at you. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part and continue to talk about how you can protect yourself from online scams.
Fortunately, even if a scam website looks legitimate, there are usually small hints that give it away. Carefully check the URL for unusual domains like .shop or .bargain, or for slightly misspelled words. Also, examine the website's contact page. Does the contact information look suspicious, or worse yet, not even exist? Finally, the biggest hint of a scam is often the price. If the price looks too good to be true, it probably is. Knowing what to look for is the best way to avoid being burned by online shopping scams.
第二部分介绍形容词 legitimate， 这个字的意思是正当的、合法的或是合情理的。例如 The officer swears the confession was extracted through legitimate means. 那名警官发誓是透过正当手段取得招供的。或是The young prince has a legitimate claim to the throne after the king's death. 在国王驾崩后，那名年幼的王子拥有合法王位继承权。接下来看到片语 give something away， 意指泄露点点点。例如 The worker gave the company's confidential information away and got fired. 该员工泄露了有关公司的机密资讯，并被解雇。下一个介绍的是 bargain， 这个名词有特价商品、便宜货或是交易的意思。可以说 Juanita found some great bargains when she went shopping with her friends on Saturday. Juanita 星期六与朋友去购物时，发现了一些便宜划算的商品。又或者说 Anita made a bargain with her son that he would get a toy if he did well on his test. Anita 跟他儿子达成协议说，如果他考试考得好，就可以得到一个玩具。接着来看到副词 slightly， 它的意思是稍微或是略微的。例如 My new computer is only slightly more powerful than my old one. 我的新电脑只比旧的电脑稍微强大一些。或者 Robin opened the window slightly to let some fresh air into the room. Robin 把窗户稍稍打开，让一些新鲜空气进来。再来是形容词 suspicious， 意思为可疑的或是怀疑的。我们可以说 The price of the TV was so low that Brett was a little suspicious. 这台电视的价格太低，令 Brett 觉得有点可疑。又或者说 The bank was investigated for suspicious transactions. 该银行因可疑交易而受到调查。最后我们来看到片语 worse yet， 它用来说明比前面所提更糟糕的情况，更糟的事。例如 The tornado already caused serious devastation these days, and worse yet, a stronger hurricane is coming next week. 那个龙卷风已经在这几天造成了严重的破坏。更糟糕的是，更强的飓风即将在下周到来。或是 Jack just got fired on Monday, and worse yet, his car was stolen on the same day. Jack 刚在周一被解雇，更糟糕的是，当天他的车就被偷了。
We're back with the second part, and in this part, we will find out how we can identify whether or not a website is authentic or not. Fortunately, even if a scam website looks legitimate, there are usually small hints that give it away. So when something is legitimate, it follows the rules or it is the law. So when it is legitimate, it is real, it is proper. For example, your teacher may ask you for a legitimate reason for why you didn't finish your homework.
Exactly. So it has to conform to rules or what people expect of you. And so if you tell your teacher that you didn't do your homework because the dog ate it, well, the teacher would say, that's not a legitimate excuse because I happen to know that you don't have a dog in your home. You actually have a cat, and cats are not known to eat people's homework. So that's an illegitimate excuse. But here we're talking about looking for a legitimate website, and indeed, the website may look legitimate. It may look real. It doesn't look fake at all. But you can look for some small hints that give it away. And here we've got the phrase to give something away, or more specifically, to give it away. That just means it reveals itself. For example, you might try to disguise your voice on the phone when you're talking to somebody, but you used a certain word that only you use, and the person was able to identify you. I know you're Roger. That gave you away. I could tell it was you because of that word you used.
Right. And carefully check the URL for unusual domains like .shop or .bargain or for slightly misspelled words. So the first thing you should do when you click into a website or a URL is basically the web address you use to go onto a website. And look for its domain. So what is a domain? A domain is the internet address that belongs to a person or an individual or an organization. So, for example, a domain would be www.liveabc.com. And you know that it is legitimate. And usually, if it's something educational, it would end with something like .edu for education. So things like that can be a good hint to help you identify whether a domain is legitimate or not. So when you see websites that end in .shop or .bargain, sometimes that could be your first clue.
Indeed. So as Kiki said, websites usually are followed with .gov, .gov, .com, .edu, etc. And if it has domain names like .shop or .bargain, or also if it has slightly misspelled words, then you should be very suspicious that it is a scam website, and you should stay away. Get away as quickly as you can. And these, of course, are the domains where these websites are. And, of course, their URL will be kind of suspicious. It will be kind of fishy. Something will smell rotten in the state of Denmark. And if something is misspelled, it's not spelled correctly, okay? And, of course, sometimes people don't really have good spelling skills. So maybe, for example, the word misspelled has 2 S's, but maybe in this website they'll just spell it with 1 S, M-I-S-P-E-L-L-E-D, and maybe most people won't notice it because it looks like it's spelled correctly, but it actually isn't. So you need to look for that. They are slightly misspelled, just misspelled a little bit.
Right. It's just slightly misspelled, so sometimes people don't notice it. And here we also have the word bargain. And usually a bargain is something that is bought or sold more cheaply than usual or expected. So for example, in day 1, we saw that the shoes were 80% off. Those Nikes were 80% off. It's way too cheap, but you still want to try and find out if it really is that cheap. If you're really paying, let's say, the 20% and buying what you really think it is. And usually that's what a bargain is. A bargain is when you buy something of value at a really cheap price.
Right, and here, of course, bargain is being used as a noun, but you could also use it as a verb to bargain if you go to a market somewhere and you want to buy a bag and you ask the boss, hey, how much does this bag cost? Oh, it's $502. Oh, you expect me to pay that much for this piece of junk? I'll give you $102. 100? I can barely cover my wholesale cost with that. And then you go back and forth. That is bargaining. And in this particular case, though, that might be the domain name of an illegitimate website. It will be followed with .shop or .bargain. And again, it might have slightly misspelled words. Also, examine the website's contact page. Does the contact information look suspicious or, worse yet, not even exist?
Now, the contact page on the website is when you go down to the bottom or maybe the top and it says contact us or a way to reach the seller, okay? So you've paid for the shoes, it's been a week, you haven't received your item, so you want to go and contact them. But you go back to their website and you realize there's no contact page or there's no other form of being able to get in touch with the seller. So when the website doesn't have a contact page or their contact information looks suspicious, or worse yet, it doesn't even exist. So if the contact information looks suspicious, you have a feeling. Suspicious is to have a feeling or thought that something may or may not be what it really is. So, for example, the website says that it's from the US and the number that they're giving you is some number from India. This might be a little suspicious to you.
Exactly. It could be questionable. You're just not sure about it. And even worse, or worse yet, it may not even exist. And finally, the biggest hint of a scam is often the price. If the price looks too good to be true, it probably is. And that's a phrase we use often. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So therefore, it's probably a scam. And again, 80% off the original price is kind of ridiculous. No one's going to charge you that little money for something, especially if it's a good product. So that, of course, will be very suspicious. And knowing what to look for is the best way to avoid being burned by online shopping scams. Of course, they're not actually going to burn you by trying to set you on fire, but that just means you're getting cheated in a really bad way. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to the third part and wrap things up.
Once again, you see an advertisement for your favorite brand of shoes. The price looks great, but after a quick investigation, you realize that the site's URL looks strange. You smile to yourself and leave the website. You just avoided being scammed.
All right, we've reached the third part of our article. Once again, you see an advertisement for your favorite brand of shoes. The price looks great, but after a quick investigation, you realize that the site's URL looks strange. So you've clicked onto this website because you've seen the advertisement for the shoes that you really want to buy. The price is really cheap. You can afford these shoes because usually it would be a lot more expensive. Then you investigate. So to do an investigation is to find out more information about something. So the verb is to investigate. For example, in a mystery novel, somebody has been killed and the detective needs to investigate the case.
Right, so to investigate is the verb and the noun is an investigation. The police detective is conducting an investigation, or we could say the police detective is investigating the crime scene. And yes, you need to do some investigation, or you need to investigate the website. And if that URL looks strange, then something is probably up. You need to be aware there. Avoid purchasing things at that website. If anything looks suspicious, if anything looks questionable, and you smile to yourself and leave the website. So you have not been burned. You have not been cheated because you looked for all these clues or looked for all these hints and you found out that the website looks pretty suspicious and you decided not to buy that pair of sneakers that you want so badly, and you've instead chosen to just hop on the bus and go down to Gongguan or go down to Ximending and buy the shoes from an actual store.
So you leave the website. You have just avoided being scammed. And that's the end of our article. Let's listen to Henny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分写到，网络购物诈骗通常有2种普遍的形式。第一种是假商店，那第二种是人们被欺骗，以为自己买了某个品牌的产品，但之后却收到一个比较廉价的仿冒品。文中用到 counterfeit 来形容仿造的、假冒的。那我们来拆解它的字首字根。Counter 这个字首啊，它有相反、对应、对立等等的语义。那么字根 FEIT 它表示制作出相对应又具有对立性的产品。我们用这样的方式，也许可以联想到 counterfeit 它有假冒仿造的语义。那我们也顺便补充几个有字首 counter 的单字。第一个是 counteract， 它的字首 counter 有相反对立的意思。那么 ACT act 它表示行动作用，对立的行动应该就可以联想到 counteract 它有抵消或是对抗的意思。第二个补充的是 counterattack， 它的字首 counter 表示相反对立， attack 是攻击，合在一起 counterattack 就表示反攻反击。第三个补充的是 counterclockwise， 这个 clock 是时钟嘛，那么 WISE 这是副词字尾，表示以什么什么方式，把这两部分组合在一起 clockwise 就表示顺时针方向的。那我们接着在 clockwise 前面加上字首 counter 相反的，那顺时针的相反就是逆时针咯，所以 counterclockwise 就表示逆时针方向的。好，接着读到课文第二部分的第一句，他说啊，幸好即使诈骗网站看似正当，通常还是会有一些蛛丝马迹让它露出马脚。文中用到 even if 来表达即使怎么样怎么样。这边我们来比较一下 even if 和 even though 的用法。even if 它表示即使就算，那它是 if 的强调说法，用来引导条件或假设的情况，强调说无论情况是否成立都不影响结果。就像课文的用法，他说即使诈骗网站看似正当，通常还是会怎么样怎么样，所以就是不管这个情况是否成立都不会影响到结果，通常还是会怎么样。好，那么再来 even though 它表示即使虽然尽管，那它是 although 或是 though 的强调说法，用来引导确定的情况或已发生的事实，强调说虽然某个情况成立，可是还是有某种结果。举例来说， The outdoor concert went pretty well even though it rained。 虽然下雨，那场户外音乐会还是进行得很顺利。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Legitimate. Mr. West wasn't sure if the email was legitimate or an attempt to trick him into providing valuable information. Domain. The clothing company registered a new domain to launch their online store. Bargain. Marlene managed to find a great bargain on a new purse during the sale. Slightly. Ted seemed slightly nervous before his talent show performance. Suspicious. The package left on the bus looked highly suspicious, so the bus driver decided to call the police. Investigation. We hope that the investigation will reveal the cause of the fire.
Discussion starter starts now.
Okay, it's time for us to have our discussion starter. We've got a question, and then we're going to give you a sample answer to the discussion question. The question is, have you ever been tricked by a scam? If yes, what happened? If no, how do you suggest that people avoid being tricked?
Well, for me, I have never been scammed because for websites, I always look very carefully at these examples that were shared with us in the article. So I always look for details. And also in person, I just avoid talking to people that I don't really know. So if I want to buy something from a person, I would actually ask for a recommendation from somebody else I know that has had experience with what I want to buy.
Well, that's a good idea. But I would say, yes, I was tricked by an item for sale on eBay many years ago. I was trying to buy a used rangefinder camera. It was an old Canon QL17, and it looked like a pretty good deal. And it was on eBay. It looked like a trusted website, but the item they sent me was of very poor quality. The lens was clouded over with mold, and the shutter wouldn't work. It needed repair work, and I just thought it wasn't worth it. So indeed, I felt that I had been scammed. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Kiki.
See you next time.